Hello, this is Dr. Briscoe here. I'm a teacher at Suncoast Community High School in Riviera Beach, Florida. We're on topic 2.6 today, expansion of presidential power. This is the first video on this topic, and we're going to look at Federalist 70, kind of go back to Brutus 1 to see concerns there, and then also the 22nd Amendment to talk about how the expansion of powers has been justified, and then a little bit of criticism there also. So this is a lesson overview, and we've got our topic overview here. We've got some explaining and some describing that needs to be done. So what will we learn? This is just really telling us that we've got one person to focus on in the office of the president in times of crisis like at the present. To whom do we turn to ensure the public welfare and the blessings of liberty? Congress or the president? It has to be the president. We can't focus on 535 people who aren't they're representing all of us, but in little bitty groups in states. So, all right. So Brutus has his opinion about the commander in chief and how there could be an amassing of power by this executive in the way that it is set up in the proposed constitution. All right. The president could just surround himself with people who are just going to ignore what's going on with the public and do whatever is in their best interest. He actually wants the powers given to the national executive, the president, to stay with the states, and so that would still be a confederation. And he says that would be the best way to preserve liberty. That's going to create an ineffective government. We already know that with the Articles of Confederation, there was no executive to enforce laws or respond to emergency, and the states were not able often to just agree, and you just don't have time to fool around, particularly if there are some emergency situations. So Hamilton says in 70, a feeble executive implies a feeble execution of government. A feeble execution is but another phrase for a bad execution of government. Ill executed, whatever it may be in theory, must be in practice bad government, and definitely we don't want that. So in Federalist 70, we're going back to what the founders were concerned about, who they represented, and why they had their vision of a national executive as they did. The founders, of course, were political and economic elites. They had personally paid for the revolution. They certainly wanted to make sure they got their payments back. They did not want to, really expand in terms of having more people involved at the highest decision-making levels. And so while there were, efforts to bring more people in, the elite was not really for that. They wanted to, keep most of the government out of the hands of the people and keep it for themselves as those that were more educated and ready to handle such a big responsibility. All right, so powers of the executive. We've got those powers that are expressed or enumerated in Article 2. We've got implied powers. That is, if they have these express powers, then they must have these implied powers. And then we have these inherent powers in that, it's something that you would have to have given a government, and are just, different than implied, but certainly connected to the fact that you have the authority through that expressed power. I'm just going to speak briefly here about source analysis. We'll talk more about that in the next video. You want to be able to describe the author's claim, perspective, evidence, and we'll take a look at those skills that are associated with that and looking at Federalist 70. That's why we're mentioning that as one of those sources. You want to practice these skills on your own. I've got them listed out here. The main thing is explaining the author's argument, and then we have some questions that are related to that down at the bottom that are in bold. So you want to do that on your own. So if you are able to get to the analytical reading activity 2.6 and do a close reading of Federalist 70, that's what you want to be able to do, and take some time to do that, and then come back and we're going to talk about Hamilton's case for a single executive. Remember, he went point by point to try to talk about the concerns that were put forth in Brutus, and ends up with the structure in terms of the presidency that he feels is going to take care of all of those concerns. So limitations on the executive. We have some restraint that would be by the electors. We've got unlimited terms of 4 years, and that then is going to make the president always concerned about the next election, and doing a good job so that getting reelected is a possibility. If you were not getting approval, if people didn't like what you're doing, then you're going to get voted out of the office. And we got a little excerpt there from Federalist 70 that you can read. Elections on a single executive. All right. So we've got two things in that we can expect people to control themselves, or we can add mechanisms for them to want to control themselves. Remember, we talked about that early on. So just getting to this idea of being able to take care of your responsibilities as an executive and not be willing to go beyond those. Preventing tyranny, the Electoral College, as it is set up now. Think about on your own, what are the effects of formal and informal changes to the election of the presidents, and that is not the same as it started out at the beginning of the country. We have shared power of advice and consent. Why? Because we want to have some checks and balances. The 22nd Amendment dealt with a president, having more than 2 terms, elected more than 2 terms, and that being kind of a problem. So by implementing the 22nd Amendment, then presidents are limited to 2 terms. There were also changes made to the Electoral College, and the presidential candidates were going to select their electors. All right. So 2 things there that really are talking about some checks there on the presidency. So what should we take away? We're able to look at Federalist 70. You're going to do that on your own. That is one of those that you're going to need to do the close reading on because it's one of your required documents. You want to make sure you understand the point of the 22nd Amendment and some of the history there is associated with it. And then we're going to be talking more about perspectives on expanding presidential power and is it really what we need to have as a country. All right, back where we started with our lesson. And so this is the end of this video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.